Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Friday. We are careening toward the draft. Just 3 weeks from today, we will have some draft action to be talking about. But
careening, you make it sound like the stock market.
Yeah, but we're careening in a positive direction, so a little bit of a difference there. But until we get there, we've had some news. You know, there was meetings at the first part of the week, and there's been some contracts and some player movement coming out of that. So we'll start by diving into some quarterback news. Patriots quarterback Joe Milton was traded to the Dallas Cowboys along with a 7th-round pick for a 5th-round pick. He becomes kind of the presumed backup there to Dak Prescott. Meanwhile, his backup, maybe QB in waiting from last year, Trey Lance, who is a free agent, signed a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. He joins Taylor Heineke behind Justin Herbert there. Do you think either of these moves spark your interest?
So if I was going to roster one of them, it would be Milton. It just feels like we've had two teams be completely out on Trey Lance. Now, signing him to a $6.2 million contract, I guess it feels a little more than I would have expected. I don't know if there is a league minimum that he's at or something, and that's why it's that much. I guess it felt like if he was going to sign, it felt like he'd sign for 1 year, like $2 million or something like that. But I don't know. Lance is still he's still only like 24, 25 years old.
Yeah, he was a really young prospect coming out, and you know, you probably would be more interested in at least monitoring that because he's playing for a coach that, you know, obviously worked with Colin Kaepernick and a system, you know, with an offensive coordinator who previously worked with Lamar Jackson and some running guys. He's 24. He was born in 2000, so he must turn 25 this year.
So but Greg Roman is going to train him so he can go be Lamar Jackson's backup.
I just don't think there's that kind of upside. If there was, we would have seen it in any spark of it maybe in the last couple of years. I'm with you. Milton would be the one of the two that I'd be more interested in, but honestly, I don't know if I'd roster either at this point in time.
I mean, in the offseason, you're just throwing some guys on the end of your roster. Milton flashed in one game last year, 2 games, something. He made
against backups.
Throw. Honestly, I'll say Milton outperformed what I expected out of him after seeing him at Michigan. And then when he was at Tennessee, he kind of seemed like he was very slow to react to things. He's a big dude, 6'5". He's got that Ben Roethlisberger stature, and he's got a big old arm, can throw the ball a mile. But I just didn't feel like he was a legitimate prospect. But we see guys come into the league all the time, and, you know, something just clicks. A coach just clicks for them, and maybe it's a specific system that they get in. I don't know that Milton is being groomed as Dak's replacement. I wouldn't bet wouldn't bet 2 quarters on that, to be honest. But I think Milton has a chance to maybe develop into a okay backup with, you know, once you get a few years in the league as a backup, you get some games under your belt, you never know. The opportunity presents itself and you rise to the occasion. I just feel like we've seen Lance kind of have a couple of those opportunities and not do anything with it. And then when he was in Dallas, it seemed like Dallas, despite rostering him, was willing to do just about anything to not put him on the field.
Another quarterback who got an extension is Geno Smith. A 2-year, $88.5 million extension gives him basically 3 years that he's tied now to Las Vegas. Not as expensive this year, but the value of those 2 years obviously is a little over $44 million per year, which is honestly a lot more than I was thinking for Geno Smith. I'm curious, we've seen in the past quarterbacks change teams and get a lavish extension before they've even played a game for that team and it not really work out. I'm kind of a little surprised this is the direction the Raiders decided to go.
Well, I think there's, the caveat there is that Pete Carroll is familiar with Geno Smith and he probably feels like, he can put Geno in a situation to be successful for a couple more years. That takes the pressure off them of having to go and reach for a quarterback. I don't think by any stretch this will preclude them from going after a quarterback. But now I think they're probably more inclined. If Shadir Sanders falls to them at 6, I feel like they're more inclined to pass and take one of those second or third round quarterbacks to see if they develop with the eye towards, maybe they end up in position in 3 years with a better quarterback class.
Yeah, we will certainly see what they want to do, but at least they got some stability. They still have Aiden O'Connell there to be kind of the backup too, which, he's been a serviceable guy when they've put him out there as a spot starter. So,
the biggest thing that with O'Connell is he hasn't really, it just feels like there's always been a huge deficiency on the team when he's been put in charge. Whether it's coaching, whether it's running game, and whether there's issues with the O-line, it just always feels like there's something that he just can't overcome. He's not an elevator. He's a game manager at best.
Maybe. I don't know. I thought he did some nice things as a rookie for a team that was kind of crumbled all around him. And then last year he just, Minshew wasn't a great choice. And then when they went to him, he got hurt and was kind of in and out of the lineup. I don't know that he's the answer, but I don't know that he would be that much worse than Geno. The Geno thing mystifies me. So,
I feel like I would have been more comfortable with a 2-year, $60 million,
well, and if
$50 million.
If that's the range he wanted to go in, maybe that explains a little bit why Seattle went another way, because I don't know that Geno's that much better than Sam Darnold, but he's going to be in the $10 to $11 million a year more costly range. So that was a huge chunk of change. It's going to be interesting to watch some of these. The last piece of news, Trey McBride signs a massive 4-year extension with Arizona. Makes him the highest paid tight end in the league. It doesn't feel that surprising to me. I guess I didn't realize, but it makes sense. He's played 3 years. I think he's going into his 4th year, and I believe he was a 2nd-round pick, so it's probably going into a contract year. So makes some sense they'd want to lock that up.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal the last couple seasons since he took over for Zach Ertz. I know there's some people, making jokes about, that's $36 million per touchdown or, something like that. But he's a great route runner, racks up a lot of yards, makes the catches, great 2-way tight end. He's not afraid to get his nose in there and block. He's got good size. I think this establishes him and Marvin as kind of the top 2 there. Now we just need Marvin to take that step And then maybe we'll get Kyler to $4,000.
I just don't know if it's ever happening at this point. It's almost more amusing if he can go his entire career and never quite make it. Well, we transition now from news to continuing our look at rookies. On Tuesday, we talked about quarterbacks. Today, we're going to talk about running backs, kind of a deeper running back class this year, but maybe not with the same top end we've seen in some classes. But certainly, if you need a running back in your dynasty drafts, you're probably feeling better about this year than you were about last year. But Dennis, I think you and I both have the same guy atop our list, and that is Ashton Jeanty, and probably have him separated from the rest of the pack. I think he's, for me, I think he's probably the number one overall pick in all formats because of the nature of running backs and because of his potential, especially with some of the places he could end up going in the draft. Seen a lot more mock action of him going to the Raiders at 6, which would be kind of a nice fit there for a team that wants to run. But how do you feel about Jeanty?
He seems to be locked in as the 101 in Superflex and 1 QB. Sleeper has him at the 101 in their rookie ADP. 5'8.5", 211 pounds. So he's very sturdy, very, rocked up. Started playing the game on a military base in Italy. Who is it? There's somebody I talked to that I keep talking to that. One of my coworkers used to watch him play high school football in Italy. He was in the Air Force for 16 years. And so he was like, it was just amazing it was like a guy playing against toddlers is what he said Ashton Jeanty looked like. But he had a great career at Boise State. Very good contact balance. He runs with really good pad level. And because he is so dense, he's not overly tall, but he's at that 211-pound mark. He can wear defenses down. He can make himself small and not take big hits. And he's got a lot of quickness. He doesn't necessarily have super good long speed. He's fast, but he isn't, otherworldly fast. But I think that, he makes up for those things just by being able to not make mistakes, do what he's supposed to be doing. He's the guy that's always moving forward. He's going to get you the tough yards, and then eventually he's going to break those tough yards into a big run.
So moving beyond him, what would be your next tier group?
So my next tier is Travion Henderson and Omarion Hampton. And I've got Henderson ahead mostly because of his explosiveness. He's a tough runner. When he runs, he's looking to finish, even though he's only about 204, 205 pounds. Honestly, I'd like to see him put on 6 or 7 pounds, get up into that Ashton Jeanty range. 5'10". His current sleeper ADP is 105. So Ward and McMillan and Hampton are going in front of him. But he just, I've had the pleasure of watching him for his entire college career. And while he did have some injury issues as a junior, last year as a senior, he put it all together. He showed his character when they brought in Quinshon Judkins. He didn't throw a hissy fit and wasn't like, I'm going to transfer. He went in and said, look, we got this. We're going to make a great team. Very twitchy, can get up to speed quickly. Great ball security. He hasn't fumbled in 3 years. And like I said, whether it's in pass protection or finishing a run, he can deliver a blow. He's probably the best pass protector of this running back class. And I think you see it time and time again when you watch the film. He doesn't miss. He knows what's coming. He knows where it's coming from. He gets where he needs to be. and he delivers the blow. It reminds me of Zeke Elliott when he came out. The difference was Elliott was 225 pounds, and Travion's about 202, 204. He isn't great when he gets, when he's running in traffic. He does tend to pick up some contact there, which seems like a weird criticism because I was just raving about him delivering contact. But there's a big difference between, being in a scrum and getting knocked off balance versus you're out in the open field and it's you one-on-one against a linebacker or safety. He looks slender. He's 5'10", so he doesn't, like when you look at him and Genty, there's definitely, or him and Judkins, there's definitely some juxtaposition. You got a couple guys there that just look like bulldogs, and Henderson looks a little more like a greyhound. I like Henderson because of his pass catching ability over Hampton. Hampton's another big back, 6 foot, 221. Sleeper's got him as a 104 ADP. He's got a good lateral jump cut. He can get from side to side in the hole, has decent burst off tackle. So, if he can get through the line, and he often does because he's got pretty good contact balance, he's going to be able to pick up some chunk yardage. He's got a nose for short yardage, being 221 pounds. He can get you the tough yards if you need them. His vision can be a little bit questionable. He'll run into his blocker sometimes. So he'll have to overcome that a little bit. He likes to jump into contact. Keep your feet, don't lose your leverage. That's what I would recommend. But you see guys, leaping over people all the time, and it's become the new highlight everybody wants to get, leaping over a linebacker or defensive back. Some people, when you're 220 pounds, just put the shoulder down and get those 4 yards you were going to get by leaping over. Don't get knocked on your head.
And so I would assume you see both those guys going in the first round of a dynasty draft as well.
Yeah, they would be. I would expect. So in the Superflex League, I would expect them to be probably in the top 5 with Ward and McMillan and Genty. There'll be some. If it's tight end premium, you might see Tyler Warren sneak over one of them. There are a couple people out there that really like Caleb Johnson, so they may put him up at 105. A couple people like Dylan Sampson. So there are, Cam Scattaboo's picking up some traction. But overall, I think I'm very, very comfortable with those 3 guys as my top 3 backs.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same top 3. I had Hampton over Henderson, but I think it's pretty close. But I actually have a little bit of a wider second group. I have those 2 with Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Johnson, kind of that group as my next group. And I think depending on where they end up getting drafted, I could see them moving around a little bit. But I think all those guys would be potentially players I would take in the first round of a fantasy draft, or no worse than the beginning of the second round. That's kind of the next group of running backs for me.
Yeah, I just think that Hampton is clearly above Judkins and Johnson. And so I guess
you don't know if he is for NFL teams, and that's the thing. And there's a variety of opinions. You're right. There are some people that think Caleb Johnson's the second best running back in the class, full stop. And that's where I don't think there's a big enough gap for me between those 4 at this point in time, without seeing what their draft capital is, to have a different tier break.
Well, I didn't feel like I was tiering them on draft capital. I'm tiering them on how I think they are now. So
No, but that's what I'm saying. I might have tiered those two off if they had significantly different draft capital, but I think they're all in the same group of where they're going to be targeted by teams and their potential to be productive. And that's what I said. I wouldn't be surprised, if you see one of, either somebody falls in love with Judkins or Johnson and he goes to a place where he's going to get a lot more immediate path to touches. Me maybe switching, post draft a couple of positions. That's where I would say that's my next chunk is those four. I have them in my order of preference right now, but
right.
I didn't feel like there was that big of a jump. Now, what is your next tier group?
So along with Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Johnson, I've got a couple smaller backs, Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee and Basil Tootin is he out of Maryland or I forget where he went. And so it's like I got two big backs, two small backs.
Virginia Tech.
So I knew it was over there somewhere.
Yeah.
I got Judkins at 4, and that could be homerism. I freely admit that. He's got great size. He pounds the ball, gets into the line before making his cut. He'll press it, then make the cut. When he does bounce it outside, it's because of that patience to press and kind of make that decision to get out there. There is a little bit of an issue with his long speed. If he's going, he's not going 80 because he usually is caught at 70, but he's going to bust you off 40 and 50-yard runs. He's got good speed, just not great speed. It's the difference between him and Henderson when they get to the second level. If they're at the 10 and they get to the second level at the 20 or 25, rare is it for Henderson to get caught. But Judkins can be caught. Caleb Johnson, I've got him as my RB6. He's another big back, 6'1", 224. Sleeper ADP has him at 111. He is built to handle the workload. He carried the ball a lot at Iowa. Iowa had miserable offenses during his time in college, and it's like you knew what they were going to do, and he still was productive. He runs. He's a tempo runner, so we've seen that with guys like Le'Veon Bell, where they don't, they're not necessarily up. They don't look to get to full speed as soon as the ball's in their hand. They're kind of playing the line. What's the line doing? Let me get in here and kind of move it around. He can't bring it, even though he runs pretty upright. He isn't easy to bring down with just an arm tackle. He's got a decent catch radius and he can catch the ball okay. But the upright running style, while you may not be able to bring him down at 225 pounds with an arm tackle, you do take a few more hits maybe than necessary. He's not great in pass protection. And I know there's a great conundrum when it comes to running backs and pass protection. It's like, oh, well, you have to be able to pass protect to get on the field. Well, I'm not getting points for pass protection. I need a running back that's going out and catching the ball. So while Johnson doesn't necessarily, excel in pass protection, he does pretty good catching the ball. I do have Dylan Sampson at my RB5. He's going at the 210 ADP on Sleeper right now. He's a 200-pounder. He kind of, to me, he's a little faster Kyron Williams. And 5'8", 200, one-cut runner. He's got nice lateral movement. Bounces tight off his blocker's hip, so when he's following his blocks, he can bounce either direction quickly. He's got good instincts when he's running the ball on the inside, but he's got the speed to get it out. And despite only being 5'8" and 200, he's an effective short yardage back. One of the weaknesses he has is he sees the field better when he's running inside than he does when he's running outside. And that's just, I think that comes from maybe you feel things a little more when it's more congested, and you can feel that. And he does have fumbling issues. The ball can be ripped out a little bit. And then the last guy I have in this tier is Basil Tootin. Another small dude, 5'9", but he weighs 206, so he's a little bit bigger. His ADP is 508, so he's a guy that, based on where he's going in sleeper, I should be able to get a bunch of him, unless he all of a sudden picks up, lands in a great draft spot. Much like Travion Henderson, he's got speed for days. If he gets through the line, he's going to be able to take it all the way. Part of the thing that I'll have to watch out with Tootin is, does he get drafted and put into a special teams return role instead of being in an offense, being a weapon in the offense? He's a tough runner. He tears through arm tackles. He's low to the ground, very sturdy. He's got a strong, he's got a nose for pass blocking, but with his size, he sometimes can get a little bit, overwhelmed with, say, a bigger linebacker. Again, he's going to need to learn to hold on to the ball and make sure that when he bounces a run wide, that it really needs to go wide. We see it a lot with Kenneth Walker, that he seems to want to bounce everything wide because he thinks if he can get the corner, it's going for a touchdown. Sometimes you just got to take the 4 or 5 yards that are there instead of a 2-yard loss.
So where do you think these guys will go in rookie drafts?
I know Tootin is coming off the board at the 508. I feel like his draft capital will bump him up. There's some draft nicks out there. I know the guys over at Dynasty Nerds like him pretty well. But, he's probably, I think you can probably get him in the 4th round, maybe even late 3rd. If it's definitely worth keeping an eye on where he goes. Especially, it's one of those things this year, because the draft class is deep, but maybe not necessarily loaded with top-end talent. Running and the wide receiver group isn't great. The quarterback group isn't great. So we may see running backs start to get pushed up the board. I think Judkins has a chance to sneak into the back of the 1st round. Caleb Johnson, another guy who probably sneak into the back of the 1st round, especially if you've got a team that is, if Johnson goes to Pittsburgh, for instance, in the 2nd round, feels a little bit late where they pick, but maybe they go up and get him. And, that's a place where he'll have opportunity to get the ball and, split time. He can move right into the Najee Harris role there. They got a OC that wants to run the ball. So, he could do, I think you can get him late 1st. Samson feels like he's going to be a 2nd round pick, probably mid to late 2nd round. It's going where he's going right now in the ADP 210 seems about right. But you may, if he's a guy you want, you might have to jump up to the mid 2nd round to make sure you get him. Tootin's going to be the real wild card. Again, I'm probably a lot higher on him than a lot of people. I'm enamored with the speed and then his ability to, he has a nose, he has that intensity like a bigger back, but he's pretty elusive. And so I think that could, if he doesn't get in the doghouse with fumbles and doesn't get relegated to Izzy Abanikanda return duty, he could be a wild card.
So what is your next tier?
So my next tier is a small one. Couple bigger backs. I got Cam Skattebo and Devin Neal. Skattebo is an interesting guy. Ran slow at his pro day, didn't run at the combine. And when I say slow, by and large, everybody that's posted about it is like, well, yeah, we knew that's what he was going to run. And so it's like, okay, I get it. And he ran in the David Montgomery range. He doesn't have the, I think, lateral movement that Montgomery has. He's got good power. He does have some wiggle. You see it when he's out in space. He can go from lateral, one cut and move forward. But he does seek contact, and he's 219 pounds, I think. He's going at the 301 over on Sleeper. He's another very dense guy, 5'9.5", 219. Because he is initiating contact, the opportunity for him to have a short window of health each year is definitely something you want to consider. If somebody's out there and they're getting the ball 15 times a game, and every time they have the ball, it's a highlight collision. By week 6 or 7, they're going to be nursing a lot of injuries. Little bit of ball security issue with him. And because he isn't fast, doesn't have breakaway speed, I think there's going to be some people that are down on him a little bit. People that really like him are going to go draft him in the second, because I think they're going to look at his draft capital and his path to touches. And if he does land somewhere, like, again, he's another guy, if he landed in Pittsburgh, could be great for him. I think we could probably say that about all the big backs in the class, though. He does have short arms, though he is a pretty effective pass catcher. And I like what he brings to the table. For me, though, he's just a guy that I'm going to be I'm looking to get him in the third round. I'm not looking to get ahead of market for him. If he's there at cost, early third, 212, that's a guy I'd probably go get. My next guy is Devin Neal, 5'11", 213, another guy with real good size. He's coming off the board on Sleeper right now at the 206. He runs behind his blocks well. He can, he knows the play. He follows the play. He's going to go out there and wait until the last second to make a move off his blocks. He isn't going to, he's like the anti Kenneth Walker. When you call a play to go to a hole, he's looking to make it work in that hole. He isn't looking to bounce it outside. His eyes and feet are working in tandem. He knows where he's going, what he's going to do. He's not super bursty, and so defenses can kind of get up on him a little bit. I think that he's one of those guys that you'd like to see run with a little bit more power. I don't know that he has that natural short yardage ability at 213 pounds, but I do think he's a quality back, and he could definitely end up being a guy that lands in a starting role within his first 2 years.
And why don't you go ahead and give us your last tier? We were doing kind of a top 12, because I don't have as many tiers as you from 6 to 12. I kind of all have them in the same group for me, where I would imagine they're going to go somewhere in the second or third round of rookie drafts. Maybe somebody slips into a fourth, but I think running backs are going to do pretty well throughout this draft.
I mean, it's definitely perceived as a plus running back draft. So I think that by and large, second and third round draft picks have pretty low hit rates. And a lot of these guys are going to be second and third round draft picks. And well, one or two might hit and be fantasy relevant for 2 or 3 seasons. They're in essence going to be lottery tickets. You really want to stick in the first 18 picks or so, 14 picks to get fantasy relevant players. My last here in the top 12, got Trevor Etienne, DJ Giddens, and Damian Martinez. Etienne is going undrafted in Sleeper's current ADP, which I think is a travesty. I think, obviously, because I have him in my top 12. 5'9", 198. He's another one of these Kyron Williams-esque backs, like literally almost exactly the same build as Kyron Williams. But he does have nice shiftiness to avoid traffic. He's got good balance as he makes it through the line. He has, it seems like it'd be interesting to see, like, when you come from a family of football players and you're talking football with your brothers and cousins, and you're playing backyard football with more talented players than the average kid. How does that affect your development? Because he's got good ability to set up tacklers in the open field to miss. He's got soft hands. He's a nice pass catcher. He didn't get a ton of work in college. He played at Florida and at Georgia, and both of those programs tend to share their backs, spread the ball around amongst multiple backs. He isn't. I don't think he doesn't have Travis's speed, top end speed, and he doesn't have Travis's size. So much like James Cook, being a smaller version of Dalvin Cook, though I think James has a lot more of the traits Dalvin has. I think Trevor has a different. He looks like a stockier running back, but at 200 pounds, he really isn't that much stockier. I don't know if he wears bigger pads and it makes him look bigger or something, or maybe the way his body is just his thighs are bigger and his ass is bigger, so he looks like he's got a thicker bottom versus Travis, who looks really thin. He does have a little bit of off-field stuff. In March of 24, he was charged with DUI, so he's going to have to make sure he keeps his nose clean off the field. So number 11, I got DJ Giddens, another back with good size, 6 foot, 212. He's coming off the board at 408. He's a guy, if he can get 3rd round draft capital, 4th round draft capital in the NFL, if he goes to Washington, for instance, I could see him being the successor to Brian Robinson, who's a Jag. He's a patient runner, sets his blocks up nice, follows where it's going. He's got good vision. He's pretty elusive run on the inside. It's kind of that David Montgomery quality where, when traffic's heavy, he where a lot of guys are going to get 1 or 2 yards, Montgomery gets 4 or 5 yards. I think Giddens brings a little bit of that to the table. He is a little bit inconsistent with his power. So for somebody who is 200, he doesn't necessarily deliver a blow like Travion Henderson does. And he's not very good in pass protection. So while he may be a capable receiver, I don't know that he's going to be out there a lot. And if he is, much like Antonio Gibson, it's a dead giveaway that they're throwing the ball, that he's going out on a pass route. And then finishing it off, I got Damian Martinez, 6 foot, 217. Another guy that runs with a lot of power. His ADP in Sleeper right now is 310, so he's coming off at the end of the 3rd round. There are my next group after this, it wouldn't surprise me if any one or two of them swapped into this tier based on draft capital and path to touches. But Martinez, for as big as he is and as powerful as he is, he's got pretty good athleticism. Again, he's another guy that runs with tempo, so he doesn't necessarily try to get full speed as soon as the ball's in his hand. He's going to survey the situation, see how the blocks are taking place, open up. He does run well in traffic, and he runs with power, so he can, get the pads low and deliver a blow. Lance Zierlein over at the NFL Network said he runs with concrete in his pads, knocking tacklers backwards. So, that's a guy you want to, it feels like when you start talking like that, reminds me of Jordan Howard, former Chicago Bears back. But he can catch the ball a little better than Howard. He's not really a receiving threat so much as he is a check down option. And much like opposite of Caleb Johnson, who is pretty good with his catch radius out in the field, can bring in the ball away from him. Martinez needs the ball to be pretty accurate to bring it in. So if you're off target with it, it's chances are he might not get it brought in. So he'll have to do a little bit of work on blitz pickup. While he's big, he does lack some technique.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you think even these tier probably third round of rookie drafts. When you're in that's kind of what I'm thinking too. When you have that 12, we'll talk about tight ends on Monday and then wide receivers next Friday. But it seems like running back will probably be a more stable option. There are a couple of top end receivers, but there isn't a lot of overall joy for the depth of a receiver group.
In this running back class, like my next tier is like 7 players right now, and they bring a little something different to the game. Like there's RJ Harvey, Ollie Gordon, Jordan James, LaQuint Allen, Raheem Sanders, Jadon Blue, and Woody Marks. And some of them guys are just pure pass catchers. Woody Marks, pure pass catcher. Well, he's got okay size. You want him catching the ball. Jordan James, he's a really good running back. He runs the ball really well. He's just really small. Not Deuce Vaughn small, but he's small. So there are some guys like Raheem Sanders early in his career was very highly regarded. Then he had some injuries, had a knee get tore up. Some of his burst and some of his lateral movement has been sapped because of that injury. Well, he's still big. He's more Rock Sanders than Rocket Sanders right now. And then I saw, who Chad Reuter is?
No.
I think he writes for the NFL.com. He released a 5-round mock draft, NFL mock draft. Had Jadon Blue going in the 3rd round was like RB5, RB6.
I feel like this is the time of year. So it's a deeper running back group, and probably what separates beyond the top, 3 to 5, the next waves of them isn't a huge amount. I think this is the time of year where people fall in love with somebody, or maybe have been in love with somebody watching them in college and are now convinced they're going to go, or they talk to a scout for one of these teams that tells you that they took off and they're going to be much higher than you imagine. And that's where, I don't think we don't really care where Ashton Genty ends up going. He's still going to be running back 1, and he's still probably going to be 101 overall. There are very few places, unless you said he went to Detroit and we were like, well, shoot, is he not going to get any carries? But I think there's going to be some variability and fluctuations in this group and in the overall top 25 and in depth of receivers when we see where they land and how quickly they get taken. Because so how many running backs do you predict will go in the first round of the NFL draft?
I think 3 are going to go. I think Genty, Hampton, and Henderson are all going to go in the first round.
I only thought we'd probably see 2. Janty, I think is definitely going. Hampton was the other one I thought would go.
For me, I'm going to be overly optimistic as a fantasy player, and I'm projecting 3 quarterbacks going as well.
Well, the interesting thing with running back though is we've seen, especially the last few years, going. Sometimes they don't go till the second or third round. You don't have any go till the second or third. Like Breece Hall, he was still 101 overall in Dynasty. He didn't go. He wasn't a first round pick. He was a second round pick, and beyond. In the actual NFL draft, we've seen that position fall a little bit. So I wouldn't be totally shocked. But there are some places, Dallas, the Raiders, the Broncos. Those would all be teams, Pittsburgh, those are all potentially teams that if they took a first round running back would really pique your interest, I would think, because of the potential of not having a lot of competition to deal with. I still love, I said Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I think Las Vegas is taking a running back. I think that's why they've done some of the other things that they've done. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we're going to see more go in the second and third round than we've seen in the last couple of years because it's a better group. So I think we'll probably end up with a few more running backs that ended up going first 2 days of the NFL draft than we've had before. Because I think the last couple of years it's been sub 10 that have gone in the first 2 rounds. I think a couple of years ago we had none that went in the first round, and we only had like 3 or 4. Wasn't that the class with James Cook? And I think Breece Hall and James Cook were in the same group. I thought,
were they? Probably.
I have to look.
And Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's year, he was the only one that went in the first. So that was 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
What a sad. Because that was the running back class that included
Jonathan Taylor went in the second round.
Jonathan Taylor, but isn't that also J.K. Dobbins and Swift? Weren't they all in that group? And there was a lot of jockeying.
And Cam Akers was the fifth one.
That was kind of a snake bitten lot, if we're being perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Other than, Taylor's toiled a lot in obscurity. So.
No fault of his own.
No. But, hey, at least it's a better crop of running backs and more optimistic than last year in rookie drafts. I think, all those people, too, that worked themselves up so that they had a shot at Jonathan Brooks, that may end up never paying off. And Trey Benson was the other one that went pretty high. I think the only steal in last year's running back class was Bucky Irving. And he went quite a little slide later.
Yeah, he was late.
Well, that'll do it for our look at running backs. Any other thoughts about this class of 25?
Several of them have my interest, and I know, that I'm fighting the urge to, target specific backs. I want to see who's available when it comes time for me to draft. And getting I roster Raheem Sanders and Jordan James in the only Devy league that I play in.
So selfishly, you're hoping that they...
Yeah, I'm hoping that they do something. Now I can't complain because when I took the team over, it had Bijan Robinson and Drake London, and somebody else, and I ended up getting CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison. But I don't know. I think this is from an NFL standpoint, I think the pendulum is swinging back towards running backs. a little bit. I think it's going to be rare, even with the pendulum swinging back, that we see the Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott level draft picks. And while the Raiders are at 6 and we're all kind of feeling like they're going Genty, I also wouldn't be surprised if they move back a few spots and still got Genty.
Yeah, I just think they're going to target an RB. So we'll see. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back on Monday. We're going to look at the top 5 or 6 tight ends that we have. It's actually a pretty decent tight end class with some big upside at the top that we haven't always had. But then we will also do a rookie mock draft because it's time to start seeing where some of this is going to fall. So if you want to jump into one of those, be on the lookout for
where we're going to draft the running backs at. You can snipe
where we think they should go. It's always the real world situation. So Dennis and I will be putting that out this weekend, getting that filled. Mock draft Mondays. We're going to have a couple on Mondays as we get ready for the draft going here through April, where we will be doing some Monday shows as Dennis is coaching some baseball on Tuesdays. So we will look at tight ends and then we will look at that mock draft. Be sure to get a chance to jump in there. But Dennis, if people have a long, boring weekend ahead of them, what can they do?
Well, if you're up here in the North Midwest, that's a directional school, and getting a lot of rain like we are, you need something to keep your mind off it. Go to your favorite podcast platform, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. We'd appreciate it.
That we would. Well, we will see you guys on Monday. Until then, have a wonderful weekend.